Good afternoon, everybody. So good to see everybody. Hello. All right, you can hear me. I'm very short, so I wore my highest heels so you could see me. Hopefully it works. Hello, everyone. My name is Cristina Cabral, and I'm blessed and have the deep privilege of being the Executive Director of TAG, Transportation Advocacy Group for Houston Region. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm so privileged to be part of an organization that significantly influences regional mobility. We all know here that TAG's fundamental mission is to educate, advocate, and build strong coalitions aimed at improving regional transportation systems. Our success stems from building broad coalitions that include businesses, local governments, community organizations, just really active people. These coalitions are crucial in educating the public and garnering support for funding transportation infrastructure. This mission is something that resonates deeply within myself, within our members, and hopefully with everyone here in this room. And consistent with our mission, we are honored to host Chairman Terry Canales, a passionate advocate for transportation and a friend of TAG. Chairman Canales is dedicated to enhancing mobility, and he prioritizes the growth and well-being of individuals, families, and businesses in all communities across our state. He recognizes the pivotal role of Houston as a key influencer in statewide matters. And I want to take a personal privilege because I just recently got to meet Chairman Canales, and I was told him earlier, I think I lost him, he's right there, that the first time I met him was during Green Light Houston, our advocacy day, and we were sitting there, and he said something so poignant and so to the point. He said, you know, Christina and TAG, what comes out of the port, what comes down 225, down 59, and down 71 into my district, my one light Main Street district, affects all Texans. It shows that we're connected, it shows that we need to work together, and it shows that we're one family here in transportation. So excited to hear and actually hear from him today, so the future transportation, some great insights. I've often emphasized that TAG's success is largely due to the diverse and supportive membership. You know, at this moment, I really want to express my sincere thanks to our sponsors, and they're on these great boards that you see right here, and really want to thank them for their steadfast support and contribution. I'm going to take privilege and call their name out. NTEC, East End District, LJA, and Union Pacific, all gold sponsors. Our silver sponsors, LAN, Port of Houston, Outreach Strategist, Raytech, Versa Infrastructure. In addition, I want to thank our mobility partners, our wonderful mobility partners, key members of TAG, who help us 365 days out of the year. That would be LAN, the Port of Houston, Geotest, Outreach Strategy, ISANI, DEC, LJA, WSP, Walter Moore, HAF, DCCM, H&TB, Union Pacific, Pape Dawson, Woolpert, and Raytech. I'd also like to recognize Chairman Canales' colleagues, partners in what I call positive, I wouldn't say positive crime, but positive change. And these are our fellow elected officials. There's so many here today, so I can't recognize each individually, but I really would like each of them to stand. I can see you from this podium, so I ask all the elected officials and appointed officials, please stand, and let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your support. And before we break for lunch, I do want to take a quick moment as well and just let everyone know that we ask that everyone pray for Mustafa Tamiz. Unfortunately, our TAG chairman cannot be here today due to a family situation. He sends his regrets, but we know it's the best to always be with family in hard times. But I did let him know that all of us would be praying for him and wishing his family well. So with that, and at this time, I'd like each of you to go ahead and start digging in. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back shortly to start the second part of the program. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I hope everyone is enjoying your lunch. We're going to, for sake of time, we're going to get into our program. First, I'm a construction man, and I always like starting with the safety moment. There are 2 exit doors. In the case of an alarm, there are 2 exit doors. First one's out. Make sure those doors stay open and walk out patiently out to the side of the hotel. I feel really good about all this because our fire chief, Pena, is sitting right there, and if you don't follow instructions, he's here to enforce it, I promise you. Thank you, Chief. I just, safety moments are important. We never stop to think about that. I just wanted to thank all of you for being here. It's an honor for us to have our guest, our distinguished guest, and what a shining star. I've always been so proud of him and, of course, his family in leadership around the state of Texas. But Texas State Representative Canales was elected to the House of Representatives in 2012. He represents District 40, which encompasses the heart of Hidalgo County in the Rio Grande Valley. Earlier this year, Representative Canales was reappointed by the Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan, as the chairman of the House Transportation Committee. The first, I'm a little biased, Latino to hold that position. So proud of him for that. This is Chairman Canales' 3rd consecutive session in chairing this committee, and has done a fantastic job. In the legislature, Chairman Canales also serves on the House Committee of Homeland Security and Public Safety, and is a member of the Texas Sunset Commission. Outside transportation, Chairman Canales has worked long and hard and very passionate about fighting for public education, government transparency, and criminal justice reform. Chairman Canales completed his bachelor's degree at the University of Incarnate Word and his law degree at St. Mary's School of Law. Upon passage of the Texas State Bar exam, Rep. Canales opened his law firm, his law practice in Edinburgh, Texas, which is where he lives with his wife and 5 children. So not only is he a super legislator, but he's a super dad, a great guy. Would you join me in welcoming Chairman Canales?
Whichever side you
Noon.
want. Afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us. Well, just a slight change in plans. As we mentioned, Mustafa Tamiz cannot be here today. So I'm stepping up. That's what I get paid the little bucks for, to be here. So just be patient with me. It's my CNN debut, Mr. Chairman. So just, bear with me.
I'm a little surprised. So I got home. I'm now in a room of people that want to hear me speak, and I'm left my house where nobody wants to hear me speak. So.
Well, we definitely want to hear you speak, and we definitely are eager to hear what you have to tell us and how we can be helpful. I'm a big call to action person, big call to action. So today, guys, we're going to hear from you and just get a fireside chat, kind of casual, but also insightful, to let us know what your vision is from transportation, as well as how we can continue to look forward. So let's just dive right into it. I mean, what an exciting session, or sessions plural. And I want to say, and the Chairman knows this, we've rescheduled this 3 or 4 times. I jokingly said, don't even say the word special around us anymore, but so glad you could finally join us. And to the other state representatives here, thank you for your service too. But
I do want to thank my colleagues after so many sessions that you're actually here. Thank you so much. There's several of us. I saw two of my freshman colleagues that have now learned that first they swear you in and then they swear at you.
So would love to hear your perspective and just share the good news from this past session, the good and things that went well, and some of the victories that you had.
So this was an incredible session for transportation. The speaker before we started said it was going to be an infrastructure session, and it was. 2 of the biggest things that we did, we collectively as a body, but myself along with my counterpart in the Senate, Senator Nichols, as we extended Prop 1 and Prop 7. Those are incredible. They account for almost 40% of infrastructure funding today. And so that makes sure that we're going to have funding in an arena where funding is absolutely paramount. With you see the skyrocketing of what it costs to build infrastructure and supply chain issues that have still plagued us since COVID. And we've learned so much from COVID, but the reality is we still haven't caught up from what it sets us back. And so making sure that we have funding into the future. The problem that we've got, in addition to that, is we have a ballooning population. It's scheduled to double by 2050. So making sure that we don't, that we ensure the funding streams that we have are constant, but also we need to think outside the box. And so this last session, we actually passed some progressive measures out of the House that didn't quite make it out of the Senate, but the reality is this was an incredible session all around for transportation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know TAG shares that with you, and we're super excited about the extension, Prop 1, Prop 7, which is on our legislative agenda, but also in the EV, passing the fees on EV, which is the future, and something that we all hear a lot about, and I think we'll hear more in the next sessions to come.
So the tax and or user fee on EV, so basically we're seeing a exponential growth in electric vehicles. And the reality is that none of those electric vehicles are paying what someone would call their fair share. Now, is the legislation that we passed perfect? It's not. So I'll give you an example. A grandma that drives to HEB twice a week is not the same as somebody who uses an EV 30,000 miles. And you say, well, where's the fairness? Well, every one of our cars is kind of like a Pac-Man, and it eats pavement. And so the reality is, Texas, I don't believe personally that we fund transportation the right way. And in fact, the House actually passed a bill out, which is a vehicle lane miles traveled. That's where we really should be. And so I had a bunch of extreme politicians on one side and extremists saying, that's just another tax. Well, if they would have read the bill, it says in an effort to eliminate the gas tax and the diesel tax, because you're already paying per mile at the pump. That's what you're already doing. You're buying whatever mileage your car gets, you're paying for it at the pump. And so when you talk about EVs, well, what's fair? Well, fair would be what you actually consume in pavement. And the reality is that our committee passed a bill that the House passed 2 sessions ago that did a pavement consumption study that tells us exactly what we consume. It tells you what your truck consumes, what a fully loaded commercial vehicle consumes. And so in order to fund transportation to the future, you can't just tax one person disproportionately over another. And so what's equitable? Well, equitable is paying for what you use. The fact is, getting us over that hurdle, I was very surprised we got the House to pass that bill. It died in the Senate. But that's where we really should be, is paying for what each individual uses. And to some extent, that's what the gas tax tries to do, but also disproportionately. And so it hasn't been indexed in years, which is a problem we've got. So our buying power with the gas tax is at an all-time low, but making sure that EV users at some point were going to pay what they were consuming was important. And so we compromised. It took us 2.5 or 3 sessions maybe, but we got it done. And hopefully we can get the legislature to open their eyes and say, all the way across the board, we need to find a different way to fund transportation because it's just not working. There's a lot of people, we have a lot of money, we've had more money than we ever had, but we also have a population that's growing, our demand is greater, construction costs are greater, so in order to keep up with that, we have to think of other ways to do it, and we can't let people that don't understand the concept of eliminating one tax to make a more equitable way of paying for things, destroy the future. And I think the future is people paying their fair share.
Yep, absolutely. And equitable is the key piece in that statement. Absolutely. We'll get back to that. And I also know in a few minutes we'll be taking questions from the audience, and I think you'll hear some more on that. But let's talk about the Seaport bill that you authored. Pretty exciting, historic bill.
So
This is pretty popular here, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
So I'm in a port town, and so I will tell you that the word port is important, which I've thought of one day. But last session, we studied ports, and that was a charge that the speaker allowed us to do. And so we held hearings in different areas And the first thing that occurred to me is, as the chair of transportation, was funding. Where do you find funding? Well, there's no greater economic generators in our ports. Land ports, seaports, airports, but we don't contribute anything to them. So we have some of the largest, most successful ports in the nation without any sort of government subsidies. And that's incredible. And what the problem is that we will fail to properly compete when you've got other Gulf Coast states that are putting money in their ports. And so in order for us to maintain our leadership role in the United States, and as a port leader, the state of Texas must contribute to the ports. And so I think it was a small victory. I think it was about $640 million total that we've got, which is in relation to the $300 billion that ports do in trade. And for economic, we talk a lot about border security, but economic security is driven by our ports. There's the job impact, the economic impact is almost, we try to measure, but I almost think it's probably incalculable, the ripple effect that our ports have. And for us not to contribute anything is absolutely astounding. It's astounding. And so we tried to pass some measures. We had an HJR 144, I think it was, that allowed us to build roads inside the ports, because we stopped right at the gate, which is absurd. If you think, TxDOT knows how to lay pavement. And at the very least, we should be able to build the roads out in the port and making sure that the road has continuation or continuity. But we've got some funding for the first time. Yep. And I think it was due in large part to the work of the House Transportation Committee and the two bodies understanding what I'm screaming is that we've got to invest in the ports. And if we don't, we're not shooting ourselves in one foot, but both feet and the head at the same time. We have to move forward. We have to understand that without the ports, let me digress. Everybody says the Texas miracle and oil and gas, and we are so fortunate to have the hydrocarbon treasure that is Texas. But if the ports don't move, the oil and gas stays in the ground. So you can't have one without the other. So if you want to know how important, if you think oil and gas is important, well, you better make sure that you understand how important the port is to oil and gas. And so moving forward, you can't have the hydrocarbon Texas miracle without efficiently functioning ports.
Absolutely, and I think that's music to the ears. I know Commissioner Garcia, Representative Pettis, it's in your district, but it affects all of us. And we've recently went on a tour of the Port of Houston, our partners, and it's such an astounding feat to see it. And I think we as Americans, as citizens, as Texans, don't realize the significance of what's right there in our backyard. And to your point, we have the Port of Beaumont, we have Freeport, where this is a port town. So it's music to our ears.
It's the most beautiful brown water I've ever seen.
No, it's the most lucrative brown water. It's the richest brown water, and
That's
it's what
right.
adds to this state. So we treasure that brown water. All righty. Well, let's talk a little bit about just yourself and what all the experience that you bring. You served 3 sessions now as chairman of the House. Kind of excited, looking for a 4th, and just want to know what you think the number 1 challenge is for the state.
I'll say it again, is that our population is scheduled to double by 2050.
Yep.
That means that today your drive here might have been the shortest commute you'll ever have, because tomorrow is going to get worse, and it's going to get exponentially worse. And so right now, a little over 50% of the funding that we have is dedicated towards preservation and maintenance of the 200,000 lane miles that the state of Texas owns. So that means we spend over 50% preserving and maintaining what we have, which leaves less than 50% for construction of new projects. Every time you have a new project, that number on the left increases, the 50 grows. And so there comes a tipping point, and I already believe that we're at the tipping point where it's going to be harder to put new projects online because you can't afford to preserve and maintain them. And so that's what keeps me up at night, is how do we figure that out? And we'll go back to, I think we need to think outside the box, and we need to come up with a new way to fund. And I think that the fastest and easiest way is fund what you use, and equitable. But moving forward, it's also looking at how we get people from point A to point B. And unfortunately, sometimes transportation becomes partisan, but it really shouldn't, because I think the speaker's just excited about getting home to Beaumont as I am to Edinburgh, and making that trip and getting there as quickly as possible, and efficiently and safely as possible. Nobody wants to spend their life in traffic. And so, you look around Houston as I drove here, you can't fit any more expressways. I mean, there's no more green areas. I mean, there's some modifications, but the reality is, look at I-35 in Austin. What are we gonna do? We're gonna spend, I don't know how many billions of dollars to add one managed lane. Where does that really get us? And by the time that we get that done, is that the most prudent thing? I mean, everybody that's here cares or has an interest in transportation, but we should also be wanting to know what we're doing with tax dollars and the public's interest. And so making sure that we are good stewards of the tax dollar and doing what's the best bang for the buck. And some people think it's transit, some people think it's building more roads, some people have different ideas all the way around. But I was just listening to somebody say, a lady that was speaking to me earlier today, saying, look how many millions of people go to Galveston every year for tourism and along that route, but the only way they can get there is an Uber. And I said, those are the things that we should be able to think outside the box. We should be able to see how to move forward. And there's industries, there's the road builders, and there's transit people. Everybody should be moving Texas towards the common goal of the betterment for everybody. And so I think there's concessions that have to be made. Some people don't want to hear about tolls. Some people don't want to hear about transit. Some people don't want to hear anything about changing roads. We all have to work together, and there's not a one-size solution for anything in this state. Every one of us is so different. Every one of our regions, the House of Representatives is so different. People from all different walks of life, different religions, came from a different schoolroom, came from a different family setting. And so Texas is that. It's variety. It is variations in thoughts and ideas. And we can disagree, but in the end, we have to come together for what we know is the best thing, which is moving people from point A to point B. Because if we're not, then we're stagnant. If we're stagnant as a society, our economy's stagnant, and we don't go anywhere.
Absolutely. And I think when we, Houston, we pride ourselves on our diversity, but you just brought up a great point with your colleagues, and we look across our state. We're so blessed with inland and across the borders that we face both. And I think that's important for us to kind of think globally, universally, and especially with the responsibility that you have for us in the House. And so just, where do you think that leaves us now? I mean, where do you think, and I would mention, I'm real big on call to action. We are an advocacy group. We are here to educate and help. What do you think is what do you think for the interim is important for us to focus on? How can we be supportive for the 2025 session, which is, we're going to blink and it's going to be here?
So there's a lot of things. In fact, I've been keeping up with some of the stuff that's going on here locally, that's just kind of concerning. You got those ideas that there's people that want to withdraw from the Houston from the MPO, and I think that is disruptive. I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. We fought so hard in the Rio Grande Valley to merge our MPOs so that we can actually compete for dollars. But I think the goal should be, and the call to action should be that we can come together, we can have differentiation of ideas, and we can make what's working work. Disagreeing doesn't mean stopping. Right. And so I think the call to action is just that, is finding out how we're going to move forward. Again, you want to get home just like I do. Yep. And so, and you want to get to work just like I do. And so how do we do that in a growing world? Well, your landscape looks completely different than mine, so my solution is going to be completely different than yours. But nobody knows better than Houston what Houston needs. Absolutely. And the same for the Rio Grande Valley. And so the call to action is, we all have different solutions for different parts of the state. But we need to collectively look at how we're going to tie each other together, because we are tied together. Everything is tied together. Everything that you mentioned is that I told you is what you move in the Port of Houston affects me in South Texas, and what comes across the border in South Texas affects the Port of Houston. Right now, the Port of Pharr in Pharr, Texas, is the largest land exporter of oil and gas and petrochemicals. If you had guacamole on Super Bowl Sunday, there's an 88 or 90% chance it came across the Pharr Bridge, or produce. I venture to guess if there's produce, lettuce, or something that was on our table today, it came across the Pharr Bridge. That's not just for Texas, that's the United States. So our ports connect us, our roads connect us, and we are connected. And one of my favorite sayings is from Mother Teresa is, we have to remember that we belong to one another. And when we remember that we have to do what's the best for all of us. And that may mean we're going to disagree along the way, but the call to action is we got to find a way to agree on what's going to move us forward and not just fight for the sake of fighting.
I'm with you. And, and many of us know I had 12 years of Catholic school right here, and my parents invested, but it's that servant leadership that is taught. And I think TAG and the members here, I know I can speak on behalf of our membership, agree with you on that. We try and think globally, and we're blessed here. You can get here by train, rail, bicycle, walking, truck.
I think we did knock out 3 of your 5 legislative priorities.
Hey, you know what? Let's go. There you go. I know. But we got more. And we got some more. And I know there's some people here want to bring it on up. And we even got a great toll system. So, but it's important to think that way. And I know that that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. And there's another expression in TAG that I want to mention that I was told when I first took the job was, there is no such, the roads are not red or blue, they're green. They're green because they're for all of us, right? And they're for us to go home and be with our families, or to work. I was speaking with Lee Valley the day, Outdoor Association. Even at the path to go home also is an informative piece for us, right? And we all have to work and live together. And so I think it's a great segue, because we're going to do what I think is exciting is we're going to open the floor for questions and answer. And we actually have some really good ones teed up. And I need my Vanna White, AKA Jeff Collins. We chose Jeffrey. He's the second tallest person.
Somebody asked me earlier, can we ask this question? So you can ask whatever question you want. You just may not like the answer.
Listen, I know, I was we were so excited when we said, Chairman, would you be open to it? And he said, whatever, I'm ready for it. And so really excited. So Jeff, I'm gonna go and turn off my mic and hand it over to you.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, we've got a few preset questions, but I want, while we're doing these, everybody think about other questions they may want to ask the chair when we have him captured on stage.
All right, hey, good afternoon. I'm Veronica Chapa-Gorczynski. I represent the East End District. We benefit from many of the port activities, as does the region. I'm really proud of the room right now, because I don't know that we had this kind of synergy even several years ago with people collaborating on projects for the region. I think you made a great point on showing up to the Capitol and getting involved. And so I got a softball question for you, but it's so meaningful because you've got everybody in the room. They can hear it at one time. What can we do as TAG to show up to support port activities or other statewide infrastructure projects? What could we do that is meaningful and helpful to you and members of the legislature advocating for us?
So that's across the board. It's not just transportation. So the legislature touches everything from the buttons on your shirt to the tires on your car to your children's education to healthcare. There is no way on God's green earth that I can know everything that I need to know. And you are experts in your field. Some of you in concrete, some of you in rails, some of you in pavement, and some of you in just completely putting all those pieces together, TAG, HECTRA. And what I would tell you is that if you're not at the Capitol educating us, then you're not even at the table to eat. And so you have to come tell us what's going on. You have to tell us what your issues are. And if you can't get a hold of us, we always all have staff members that are there to vet, to help, to listen, and making sure that your priorities are heard. If you're not at the Capitol, or you're not communicating even at home with your local legislators, you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Okay, next question.
I want to say thank you, Vanna, but I won't. Chairman, thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your work, not just this session, but the session before. We really appreciate all you've done. Transportation reinvestment zones that we were able to vote on. Thank you. I'm Carol Abel Lewis. I'm on the TAG board. I teach at Texas Southern University. I also chair Gulf Coast Rail District. We had a meeting yesterday, and my board said to me, are you going to ask him about the Rail Relocation Fund? I said, I absolutely will. So, as you probably know, TxDOT did a study for us in the Houston-Beaumont region that showed we have 56 grade separations that need to be advanced. So as we, at Gulf Coast Rail District, started a segment of our organization that's called the Heart, and our goal is to coalesce our region so that we're not individually trying to queue these grade separations up, but have done so in a very cogent, thoughtful way. So we need, though, rail match to all the money that's come from the IIJA fund. And so know that you had some success the last time getting it a little bit advanced down the road. But I know we and others in the state would like to know what you're thinking about that. What might we do to get some more state money to match the federal money for all the intersections we want to improve with our freight rail and our vehicular traffic? So any advisement you can give us going forward, we would appreciate.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you. That's a great question. So one of the biggest problems that we have is funding. And so a fully loaded commercial 18-wheeler consumes the road at 10,000 times the rate of me and one of your vehicles. And so that goes in that preservation and maintenance budget that swallows up much of the money. The more commercial traffic we can get off the road and on rail, the better. That's a fact. And much of the problems that we have with safety issues deal with oversized, overweight, big trucks. And so moving forward, that issue is absolutely pertinent. You remind me of this last session, Representative Ana Hernandez has a huge issue in her district. But I'll tell you, when we sat down with Union Pacific, and they were absolutely understanding, we have big issues to tackle. But the players need to come together and work together. And so, yes, we made some advancements on this grade separation and improvements, but obviously we ran into the impediment, which is the Texas Senate. Unfortunately, they seem to not like good ideas. But we have a lot of work to do when it comes to living in harmony with industry, with our roadways, with rail, and we can do better. We can. And that means, like you said, tapping and matching some of these funds and making sure that we prioritize, because it's rail's my life and it's yours, but it's also sometimes inconvenient, and we need to figure out how to live together, because what's inconvenient to you is convenient to somebody else down the road. Their building materials, their ballast, whatever it is that they needed. And so it goes back to digressing to the beginning of the conversation, is we're gonna have disagreements, or we're gonna have heartfelt sentiments about when I can't get out of my neighborhood or this railroad crossings bother me. How do we fix it? And how do we come together and not yell at each other and say, there's gotta be a solution? And there are solutions. And much of that's money. And money doesn't solve all problems, but man, it helps. And so what do we do when we have a constitutionally dedicated quantity of money that goes just to highways? Or what do we do when we have opportunities such as the IIJA, when we can match funds and do stuff? That's where it's imperative that you are talking to your senators, that you are moving across. Say, where did we stop? Because if the House moved it and the Senate didn't, how do we move? Then we know where the roadblock is. And if the people in this room and these groups descend upon the Senate, you are going to see a change. You will. But you've got one or two people that go up there and hem and haw. They're not going to pay attention. There's just too many things. And what I would tell you is, absolutely, that's a crucial issue. It's crucial to one of my dear colleagues, Ana Hernandez, but I also know it's crucial to rail guys and men and women that work the railway. They don't want the problem either. And so I think if we work together and we both go up and meet our impediments head on, I think there's nothing that can stop us, not politics or anybody.
We have another one right here, and then probably time after this one for maybe a couple more.
Thank you, Vanna. Chairman Cam Spencer here with Port Houston. First and foremost, just want to take the opportunity to thank you for your leadership. You've been a great friend of Port Houston, along with your colleague. We see Representative Mariam Perez here today, Commissioner Garcia as well. We're surrounded by advocates for Port Houston and all the industries and individual families that rely on the port and the ship channel. We had a historic session last session, as you mentioned. As we know, you've got states like California, Louisiana, Florida, Alaska investing state dollars, taxpayer dollars into their seaports and infrastructure. Is there anything that we can do as a port community, as Port Houston, to keep the momentum moving forward in the right direction, keep the ship going, as to speak, and carrying that message with our state legislature on kind of next steps with investment, as well as keeping cargo flowing through our ports?
100%. So great question. And yes, thank you, Representative Perez. You're always a great leader when it comes to ports and your district. So with this historic funding, I believe that it's imperative that the Transportation Committee study what we are funded and what's happening. And that means the ports need to be monitoring exactly what they're doing very closely so that we can report back to the legislature with a positive report saying, this is what happened. This is what you did. This is what happened. Because that funding came from GR. And if anybody knows what GR is, it's the general revenue, and getting funding from GR session after session is not easy. So we don't have a revenue source for ports. We had a surplus. That surplus turned into money that was allocated towards ports. But if we don't know what sort of fiscal impact or fiscal reality we're looking at in 2 years when the comptroller comes out with his projections. And so in most sessions, we're looking at cutting budgets. And so in order to come back and fight or get equal or greater money, we're going to have to show that that investment was worth what we did. And so was the juice worth the squeeze? And so I believe that incredibly it's going to be, and I think that those numbers, but the ports with that money need to be Johnny on the spot and tell us exactly what's going on, what was happening and when, because there's going to be a short window for us to be able to prove to the bodies this was a smart play.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. Here we go, right here.
Morning, Chairman. Michelle Maksoud with the DEC. Appreciate your leadership through the time, through all this time. Everybody's real happy about how transportation is doing in Texas. I might come to regret this question, but I hope not. And that is, we always talk about we don't have enough funding, right? And you can add all the material and the money in the world, but you're still not going to have enough. The question is, we have this, I guess, feeling against tolls in the state of Texas, at least with certain people. And it would be nice if we can make use of having tolls and then use that revenue to build more roads. So I hope I didn't regret this question.
So no, you won't regret the question. So I will tell you this, as a young man that was running for the legislature, you get all these cards and ask you, what do you support? What do you not support? So back in 2012, I lived in an area that I don't even think had a toll road, but I had driven through Houston once or twice and got 15 envelopes of things that I owed from having driven and didn't know what in the world, where I had been. And so I didn't know. And so the first thing I checked off was, to hell with tolls. I hate them. And I was in 2012. Well, then I became the chair of transportation, and I realized the tolls are an incredibly important tool. Going back and digressing to the point of the conversation, I said, when you build more roads, you have more preservation and maintenance. Tolls are not part of that preservation and maintenance. They preserve and maintain themselves. Now, are tolls good for my region? They might be. Are they good for your region? Apparently, they're working. And so what I would say is, if you look at the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, they were able to leverage, I think, like $2 billion and got like $9 billion worth of infrastructure. So they were able to build infrastructure that they would have never even had for the next 20 years, period. And we're able to alleviate, but not only that, foster economic growth. And so is there a solution? Yes. And I'll tell you what I think the solution is. There's people, you've got people like Turf and that are just rabidly against tolls. And I don't think nobody loves a toll. But it works. And so the question is, why do we have many of these people? Well, I would say that I think the toll has created some of its own problems. So we've had a lot of problems with collections, and we've seen where stuff's been botched. What I would say is we need to clean up what exists and have transparency in tolls. And the cleaner, the more transparent things are, the more people trust the system. And I think right now what you've got, and what I've seen personally, is tolls are useful, tolls are good where they're needed, tolls are great tools, but tolls are their own worst enemy when it comes to public perception because of the way things have unfolded in certain regions, certain entities. And so every entity that doesn't cut it exactly perfect is fodder for the people that are against tolls. And so what I think across the board is every toll entity should be working in tandem with one another. There should be parity. They should be trying to figure out exactly how we create a system where nobody can question our integrity. And although it's not intentional, I believe that certain toll entities have created and sowed doubt and give people firepower to come after what is, I believe, a great tool that maybe unintentionally they did something wrong. So in all, tolls, I think, they work. And I think that we just have to quit giving people that are against tolls the firepower to come after you. And how do we do that? That's everybody that has anything to do with tolls coming together and saying, how do we make this part, this tool in the toolbox, not only transparent, efficient, but undeniably what is necessary where it's at. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And that is, and can you hear me? I've got my Madonna thing going on. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Thank you. No, absolutely. And it's about making sense. It's about coming together. We're so blessed here. It's about multimodal and understanding not just what goes on in our sphere as human beings, in our little world, in our bubble, but what's for the greater good. And that is our motto here at TAG. And so grateful to you, Mr. Chairman, for coming and sharing your vision and letting us know how we can continue to do great things together. I'm going to urge everyone in this room, membership 2024 is coming up, and really encourage each of you to join again and join us in this effort to advocate and educate for more infrastructure, resources, as well as to let everyone know the bigger message of the importance of transportation infrastructure in each other's lives. And I want to thank you for championing it for us day in and day out in the sessions, plural, and the sacrifice that it takes for you.
Thank you all for having me, and thank you for what you do, because if it was not for the people in this room and the advocates in this room, I laughed that I think that Harris County could have its own session. Because
Okay, strike that from the record. Please strike it.
well, I mean, it's almost a small country unto itself.
It is.
And the reality is, y'all should be so proud of what y'all built. As I was driving in here, the infrastructure is incredible. The culture, the diversity. It's such a beautiful place when you look at the accomplishments. We truly stand on the shoulders of giants that came before us, but you in your own right and your organization are giants for the cause of moving people from point A to point B. And I will end with this, is what should be one of the most important things is ending the streak. We've got to, I'm guilty of it too, we've got to quit looking at our damn phones when we're driving. And we got to make sure that we have at least one day without fatalities in Texas. We haven't done so in almost 20 years.
Well, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was great.
Christina. Okay, just real quick, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank your staff, Curtis Smith and Amy. Where you at, Amy? She's here somewhere. Stand up. Thank you so much. He has such a great staff. They helped us work through all the different details, and I just wanted to on behalf of TAG and our organization, we thank you for all your hard work, because it makes a big difference. Yes, sorry.
So real quick, and if you don't mind, so thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and helping us kind of go with the flow today. I did want to also, I was remiss, I did not get to acknowledge the Outdoors Association. Thank you, Lee Vell and team, and working with us in the future as well for education pieces. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our event, but just want to thank you again. Please be on the lookout for our 2024 schedule, which will be announced shortly. We have a robust schedule, some exciting speakers. Just thank you so much again for your support. If I don't see you, happy holidays, and let's keep working together. If I could ask the board to come up as well as our interns so we can take pictures. Have a great afternoon, and thank you so much.